Hello, and welcome back to another episode of English with Gemma, where we turn English practice into progress. Today, we are talking about why British people say sorry so much. So, this might be something that surprises you if you are visiting or maybe you just started living in the UK. Definitely when I lived in the UK, I lived there for 8 years. I noticed that people say sorry very often for things that they don't really need to say sorry for. Um, for example, when somebody bumps into you or they can even say it to start a conversation like, sorry, do you have the time? Or they can say sorry to end a conversation. They can say sorry to get someone's attention. They can say sorry to just pass by somebody in the store, like, oh, sorry, sorry. Or even if if I was looking at something on a shelf in the supermarket and there's a British person next to me, they'd be like, oh, sorry, sorry, just to get past me. Like, or even they will just say sorry to like fill an awkward silence. It's really um funny how often they do say the word sorry, even when it's not like the normal meaning of sorry. So, is it because British people just constantly feel guilty for existing, or is it just part of their vernacular, like how they use English? So, let's find out. Firstly, it's important to understand that in British culture, being polite often means being indirect, and they do have a more of a culture of politeness than Americans, I would say. Not that Americans are rude. I just definitely think that like British people have more of this like ingrained into their culture of being very polite and more formal. British people or British English speakers don't usually like to sound too direct or demanding. So they use words like sorry, please, would you mind, I'm afraid, perhaps, to often just soften what they're trying to say. So, for example, instead of saying move your bag, a British person might say, "Oh, sorry, is this seat taken?" So, like realistically, they're asking you to sit next to you on the train or bus, but they would never be like, "Can I sit here?" just directly. Like normally they'd be, "Oh, is this seat taken?" They're like asking, "Is anyone sitting here?" when it's obvious that no one's sitting there. But instead of asking directly to sit there, they ask, "Is this seat taken?" Instead of saying you're wrong or like I disagree, they might say, I'm not sure that's quite right, or I wouldn't say that. So it's all about being like socially smooth, and they use language to make interactions more comfortable, more polite, even if it means saying sorry when they're not really sorry at all. So here are some key phrases to draw your attention to. I'm afraid is something that we say before we give bad news or we disagree or we say something negative. We're not actually afraid in terms of being scared. We say, for example, oh, I'm afraid that there's no more tickets left, or I'm afraid that we don't have any availability at that time. So it's like saying, I'm sorry that, and then giving bad news or a rejection of some sort. The next phrase is, would you mind if, this is a soft way to ask permission. And then, like I said before, I'm not sure that's quite right. It's a polite way to disagree with someone. So, mini grammar note to pay attention to, guys, is that these softeners often use modal verbs. All right, so we know that our modal verbs are things like would, could, should, might, may, can. Okay, and would, could, and might particularly make things sound softer and less direct. Okay, so for example, let's look at how that works. um Help me please or can you help me is direct, and could you help me please, just by putting that could at the beginning, it sounds more polite, more indirect, and therefore more British. So, in our next section, we're looking at sorry as a social tool. What do I mean by that? Sorry in British English is not an apology always. Sometimes it's what we call a social lubricant, which means something that keeps the conversation or interaction flowing better, makes the interaction more polite and more comfortable. Here are a few examples of different meanings of sorry. To apologize. Ooh, sorry I'm late. To get attention. Sorry, could you tell me the time? To show sympathy. Oh, I'm so sorry to hear that. To politely disagree. Sorry, I don't think that's correct. To show surprise or confusion. Sorry? Like, what did you say? So, as you can see, sorry is just not a word, it's just one word. It can mean so many different things in British English, and it's like a multi purpose tool that you can use in a lot of different ways. So, some tips for you guys, don't overuse sorry in every context, but just try and notice how British people use it and then kind of try to use it in the same way. Um, if you're interested in British English or if you're living in England, maybe. So, let's have a look at how different cultures compare to British culture. In some cultures, being too direct can seem being too indirect can seem confusing or even dishonest. Like in Spanish, for example, in Spain, it's very direct. It's very, very direct. You just say what you want to say. And if you don't say what you want to say and you try and use like a bunch of different words, or you say please too much, or you beat around the bush, which means like saying a lot of words without actually just saying what you want, people might like actually start to mistrust you or be confused by why you're speaking like that, because it's just weird in Spanish. So there are lots of countries that I can think of that communicate very directly. I'd say Germany, Netherlands, Russians. Who else? Yeah, I don't know if you are one of those languages or you're one of those cultures that you just have a very direct way of speaking. Let me know in the comments below. But British is not one of those. It's probably the most indirect culture that I've come into contact with. So in the UK, something I've noticed is that the politeness can sometimes seem like fakeness. And for me, it was really difficult to make like meaningful friendships in the UK. I do have a lot of like really good close friendships from the UK, but in general, I found it more difficult to like understand whether people really liked me or if they were just being British and polite, because yeah, there were a lot of times where like people are so nice to your face, but then behind your back, they're just not that nice and they actually don't like you. Like in school, I got bullied quite a lot. I went to boarding school in England, and I mean, it was difficult because I was living in a house with like 40 girls. So, of course, there was a lot of like gossiping and young girl things, drama. But for me, it was difficult being one of the only people from my type of culture, which is more kind of Americanized. Even though I'm from Bermuda, I definitely do feel like my culture is quite Americanized more than British. And it was like really hard to know if people liked me. And a lot of the times they'd be super nice to my face, and then I'd walk into a room and everyone would be talking about me and then stop talking when I walked in because they loved to gossip behind my back. But to my face, they were like, oh my God, Gemma, we love you. So for me, I dealt with that, but I don't know. What's your experience if you have ever had any kind of contact with British people or the culture? Let me know. But yeah, I mean, I lived in England for 8 years, so I definitely have a lot of experience with British people. And I mean, it's not just about the culture, it's about individuals as well, because I have great, great friends from England who are British and super lovely people, very authentic, not fake at all. And they're polite also. But There's a difference between being polite in a genuine way and then being polite in a fake way. And I definitely dealt with a lot of the fakeness. So, yeah, I'd be interested to hear what you guys think. Is it sometimes fake to be too polite? What do you think? So, let's imagine a situation. You're in a cafe and someone bumps into you. In many countries, the person who bumped you would say sorry. But in the UK, this is a key difference, and this is so true. You will both say sorry, probably. If somebody comes and hits you by mistake and bumps into you, you will probably be like, "Oh, sorry, sorry." Both of you will say sorry. Like, even I had to unlearn the sorry thing because I have a friend from Latvia, and like when I lived in Madrid, and I would always say sorry to her. Be like, "Oh, sorry, can I just ask you something?" And she was like, "Dude, why are you saying sorry so much?" And it's something I learned from living in England for 8 years. So it's very funny because even if someone bumps into you, you probably say sorry because you both want to keep things polite. And even if no one's really to blame for the situation. Um, yeah, so that's something that's very funny about the sorry thing. So let's practice a few everyday situations. I'll give you some examples of when you can use sorry in a natural way. So, asking for help at a shop. Sorry, would you mind helping me find the tea section? It's like to get someone's attention, right? Interrupting politely. Oh, sorry to interrupt, but could I ask you something quickly? Next one is disagreeing gently. I'm sorry, but I don't completely agree with that. Notice how sorry makes it sound more gentle, um, softer, right? Softens what you're saying a little bit. We can also use the ing form if we say sorry for. Okay, sorry plus preposition for plus ing. Let's take a look. Sorry for being late. Sorry for interrupting. All right, so that's two examples of how to use it with ing. But pay attention, we use the infinitive, that means to plus the verb, when you're about to do something. Okay, so when you're like about to do something, you use the infinitive. Sorry to bother you. Sorry to say this, but, right? You're like about to do something, so you use infinitive instead of ing. All right, guys, let's wrap it up. So we covered the fact that sorry can be an apology in British English, but it has a lot more uses than in other cultures. It's a way of being kind, polite, and kind of emotionally intelligent. If you want to sound natural in English, especially British English, when speaking with British people or when you're in the country, try using sorry to soften your requests or disagreements to get people's attention. What was the other ones? Oh, and also if you want to get by somebody, like you need to kind of move past someone, you can say sorry. So the key takeaways are that sorry has a lot of meanings, not just an apology. British politeness means indirect communication, which can sometimes be confusing for people or can come across as fake. So we have to be careful that we're not like overly polite because then it can sound sarcastic or fake. And we also looked at some grammar points of ing and infinitive, and also how we use modal verbs and softeners to sound more natural. So I want to know, you guys, do people say sorry like this in your country? Do they use it so much as in British culture? Is it similar to or different from the British way? And also, I'm sorry because I have not been keeping on top of the weekly wins. So please, you guys, share in the comments below a weekly win. This is something that I like to do at the end of every episode. And what does it mean? It just means share a good thing that happened to you this week. It can be in your English learning journey or simply just in life. For example, my weekly win this week is that I started a new job on Monday. And I'm so proud of myself because I was quite nervous to start this job. I'm teaching in-person English lessons to professionals who work in a company here in Alicante. And this is my first time teaching in person for like 3 years. So for me, it was a bit nerve wracking at first to think of like, oh my gosh, I have to be like in a classroom in front of a big group of people with the whiteboard and physical worksheets. It's very different from teaching online, because when you teach online, you have your screen, you have all your PDFs, all your material. It's so easy to share. But like in person, you really have to think, okay, how many copies do I need to print out? Is this activity going to work in a real life context with, people moving around the classroom and asking each other questions? Like, how much time is that going to take? Because often the timing is like really tight for those classes. So you need to literally like plan out minute by minute how long each activity is going to take. Then I have like different levels of people in the same group. Like the levels are a bit inconsistent. So I have like really low level, like pre A1. They literally don't speak any English. So I have to give the whole class in Spanish. And then I have like a slightly higher level, but they're still not comfortable speaking. So again, I have to give the class in Spanish. And then I have some a bit higher level, like intermediate levels where I can speak more English. But I mean, it's a lot, like speaking Spanish and switching back to English. It's quite tricky, but I did it, and I think my students loved the class. I got really good feedback from them. We were laughing a lot. We were having so much fun. I was cracking jokes. It's been so cool getting to know everybody, trying to remember all the names. And just, yeah, having that like in-person connection with people is really special. And it's something that I really missed. And that's why I chose to take this job. And then I come home from that job, I eat quickly, I eat lunch quickly, and then I have my whole afternoon of teaching online classes. So I'm busy, but I have mornings free. That's when I record the podcast. And yeah, I'm very busy, but my heart is very full, and I'm very excited and happy about my career, my life in general. So it's great. So that's my weekly win. It was a bit long, but please put your weekly wins in the comments below. Thank you guys. Oh, sorry. I will read your weekly wins on the next episode. So please, if you don't want it to be read out loud, you can still share, but like just say that you don't want it read. Or if you would prefer that I don't say your username, you can say anonymous at the top of the comment. But just be aware that if you do share a weekly win in the comments, then I will be reading them out loud on the next episode, because I like to share the positive vibes with everybody. All right, guys, thank you so much for watching and listening, and I'll see you in the next episode. Bye.